I just wanted to start by saying, I know times are scary, and many of us are worried. But the important thing to remember is that we are all in this together. So take care of each other, stay inside, wash your hands, and share the toilet paper. Welcome to Shelf Help, a channel dedicated to talking into the void about whatever book I happen to be reading. I'm your host, the reader. The following review will contain spoilers. There are books that are like candy. A single note of sweetness, fondly loved, a passing note of pleasure with no nutritional value. There are books like cake. Rich, dense, complex, and still not particularly good for you. Some are like salad. Lots of nutritional value. But there are limits to how much you can dress it up, and the thought of eating nothing else makes you want to die inside. Then there are books like steak. It comes in different cuts, can be prepared different ways, sauced or not to taste, and comes with a variety of interchangeable sides. It's brimming with vitamins and minerals our bodies need. But not everyone likes steak. Some would prefer chicken or a vegan option. The Revisionaries is steak. It is definitely not for everyone. This book is loquacious, prolix, verbose, circuitous, glorious, paleonetic, wordy. I'm going to start with the preview page, just to show you what I mean. Once again, there have been changes, and not for the better. This is wrong, you mutter, as you enter, your eyes leaping to the usual place, and there they are, waiting. Pages of revisions. The stack seems thicker. You confirm the worst. A glance is sufficient. You retreat to the sofa. 30 minutes pass, perhaps an hour. You light another cigarette and stare at it. You keep perfectly still. This is wrong, you think. Again, the vertiginous feeling of being lost in the fog. A lurching halt at the cliff's edge, toes a-dangled, perched on one's heels at the imperceptible cusp of an endless drop. Wrong. Whenever you come back to it, it's wrong. But this time it doesn't seem to be tampered with. Not at first. Now, weighing the stack with your eyes, you wonder, are these changes yours? How to be sure? In the end, all you have is your own memory. Finally, you lean forward, keeping to habit. You check chronologically, from the bottom up, an inversion of an archaeological dig. Peeking at the bottommost page, you wince. That's wrong. And you flip 100 pages up, where it's worse still, carrying terrifying implications. Then you reach the top page, and you take a breath, and you begin to read. But this is a deliberate style choice related to the plot. And the plot? The plot is a trip, in every sense of the word. This is high-concept, non-linear storytelling. Characters drop in and out without explanation. Narrators shift with them writing style and font. It's philosophy, it's wordplay, it's wild. I can't summarize it without sounding like an incoherent mess. And that's sort of the point. This book is about the existential crisis every author feels as their characters seemingly take over, coupled with the inability to control how a story is received by the readers. To quote the book, the story is entirely subject to the author, but the author is entirely subject to the readers, and the readers are subject to infinite change. That's literally what happens. Change. A lot. And often. The first characters we meet are themselves characters in a graphic novel. Their world works on comic book logic. If you know comic books, you know weird stuff happens and people just go with it. At one point, the villain, Morris Love, escapes through a magic door located under a fountain whose water causes people to forget everything and replaces the author as the writer of the comic. This causes the story to jump tracks several times and is not apparent till much later that this is what's happening. This is the place where I think it's going to lose people. We start out in an area of urban blight in an unnamed city. We jump to a river walk in Tennessee, then back to pioneer days where the magic fountain is found in the woods. It doesn't make a damn bit of sense until about the halfway point of a 600-page book. Even then, it only makes a little bit of sense. Morris's attempt to rewrite the story caused incredibly weird things to happen. He writes out a character named Boyd, only to have him reappear in dreamscape of his former sister. Names of things and places change spelling for no apparent reason. Minor injuries become broken bones. Dead characters are suddenly decidedly less dead. The paralyzed can run because they need to. There is a priest who doesn't believe in God, who uses a magic lottery scratch-off to turn himself into 10 pairs of talking sandals. And that's not the weirdest event in this book. Morris, the villain turned author, can't write or draw. So his way of altering the story is to pop back into it or put other people from the author's world into the book world. And when he returns, new pages have appeared. His lack of control frustrates him because he can see the infinite possibilities. One of my degrees includes a minor in English, and one of the professors said something that has stuck with me. The words on the page are only half the story. The experiences we bring are going to color everything we read. If you are even a casual student of history, it's obvious when someone makes a dramatic choice over an accurate one. Most doctors can't watch shows about doctors. If a story tells you the walls are green, what color are you thinking of? A pale yellow-green? Grass? Forest? Teal? And that's Morris's biggest problem. He is trying to control perception and interpretation so the story is strictly his own, which isn't possible. Yet he's convinced he can do it. So from the book, so the new game has begun, the game of the master, played with the same goal as the first, perfect the story, but to a different purpose. No longer sanctifying a world below to prove yourself worthy to move upward at yet another sphere, but rather to sanitize the one below, to make it a worthy enough vessel for your ascended self to live comfortably within. The first thing was to stop all the nonsense of interpretation, this silly string movement, this horrid spooky action. You devote all the new issues of Cat's Crib to spelling out your intentions in exact language, no drawings, just plain words on the page, each detail described, from the path of a bird crossing the sky to the exactitude of facial expression, posture, gesture, the thoughts governing each action, ethereal intent conveyed with inescapable specificity, down to the mite, the mot, minim, the indivisible particle. You knew you'd need to start from the beginning, to explain the book until every reader understood how to read it properly, to keep at it until they couldn't read it any other way. Morris is a narcissist. After forcing the author into his role in the story, he writes himself as the only consciousness in the universe. Not that he just believes himself to be absolute, but with the actual power to destroy the world within the book. Wait, does that count as an authorial insert? Is it a critic of self-inserts and power characters meant to stand in for the author and their views on the world? Is it... You know what? Never mind. There are enough rabbits to chase here. As I said, it also touches on high concept. The nature of self, choice, possibility, probability, wealth and poverty, God, existence, free will, perception, reality, and the interpretation thereof. Characters in the book, within the book, still see their world as real. Even after they've had a talk with God, and Morris explains that they are in a novel, to them, they are making their own choices. Now, do they? That is a different question. Every time Morris goes into the story, he returns to the author's world to find new stacks of pages written for him. But who is actually doing the writing is never said. The pages are just there. Which, considering the nonsensical nature of the story, is just something to accept and move on, honestly. One of the main characters is Julius. He is the aforementioned priest. He wears a denim frock and runs, literally runs, his daily errands. He is also fabulously wealthy, the heir to a sardine empire. Yes, the sardines are definitely used as a metaphor for warehousing and disregard of the poorest people in society. Why he runs is one of Morris's revisions. And this is where the book gets slippery. At first, it seems like just a quirk. In fact, in my earlier notes for this review, I put in that it probably was about the futility of fighting the system, even with the best intentions, since no matter how fast or far he ran, he could never make a difference in the island of urban blight. Reason he actually runs is because Morris revised the story so that Julius's father decapitated himself, and he ran away. Morris needed Julius to be a good runner so he could run down not Morris, who at this point is actually the author, but we don't know that yet. So he won't take the kid with god powers, because if he does, something bad will happen. But that something bad was revised out of the story? So is Julius's running a choice, or that something that was forced upon him? I think the answer is yes. Like I said, Morris isn't writing the story, even if he is affecting it. So the pages have to be coming from somewhere, and that the characters are in fact making their own choices seems to be the implication. Which goes back to the author feeling like he's not in control of his own characters. But to Julius, the world is real. It is his reality. His choices are his own, even when those choices, including turning into 10 pairs of talking sandals, just to give the double bird to Morris. Morris represents as God, even if he denies actual divinity, and in a way he is. He stands outside the story, watching the action, only jumping in at strategic points he deems necessary to achieve his own ends. It does line up with the theory of an uncaring God. And the wildest part is that this deep thought may be unintentional. Or maybe it's completely intentional. Or am I projecting from my own experiences? Or maybe because I followed the author on Twitter, I have certain expectations. Or maybe, just maybe, I'm reading too much into this. After all, I am a revisionary. I am going to put this on my top shelf. It is amazing, complex, existential story. Non-linear writing of this kind is very hard to pull off, and full kudos to A.R. Moxon. I just can't see this being for everyone. Between the heavy vocabulary, lofty themes, and non-linear plot, I think some people are going to find it confusing and frustrating. Thank you for your time. I know everyone's mileage will vary. Please feel free to leave your thoughts.